think a lot of students have just gotten another sense of how to belong and how to create relationships outside of what were the traditional avenues.
And a lot of my students talk about how they feel safe in the esports program, and that's their family, that's their community. And I think the esports gives kids a future that they might otherwise not have.
Man, I wish that had been available when I was in high school.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the CIAC State Championships. I am Audio Adrenaline, once again joined here by Kios, my wonderful color caster, and we're going to have some great League of Legends matchups for you today.
Yeah, it's going to be a great series, I think. We had a bit of a lopsided one last night, unfortunately, but some real mental toughness show by those guys to come back in Game 2. Hoping for a bit of a close series. Maybe get to Game 3 here and get some more games for you guys. Yeah,
this is going to be the finals here, the two teams, best of 3 match, so there will be plenty of opportunities for that back and forth. A Game 3 would be wonderful. I always love seeing more League of Legends, especially at such a high competition here, seeing these teams face off. It could be, you know, last year we saw a little bit of a blowout. Like you said, though, there was some fight back. Hopefully a lot more of that this time around.
Yeah, we saw a lot of unique picks too. I was really excited to see some of the picks they pulled out, some new champions we don't get to see too often. A lot of the staples were there, but some new champions, and I'm excited to see if there's any pocket picks we got to bring out today, anything unique. You know, I always love to see new champions be played.
Yeah, speaking of new champions, Set is available as well. The newest champion to join Summoner's Rift. We've seen a lot of ones kind of been pushed out rapid fire. We've seen Set, we've seen Aphelios, there's the Diana rework that's really strong right now, so there's a lot of new stuff for these teams to pick up. But of course, we have to say a big thank you to PlayVS for putting on this event. They are going to be hosting this one this time around, and they've just been doing incredible work all over the country, setting up these esport leagues for these high schools, really trying to rival that traditional sports meta of football, basketball, baseball, and giving these kids who might not have been interested in those a place to compete and really put in their passion. And there's a lot of growth in the industry right now. This can really turn into a successful career.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunities going forward here, and it, just so great to be a part of an organization like this, and also, giving these young players, young students a chance to, come together, learn, team building skills, all sorts of stuff that they're going to use later on in life. It's just amazing, what these kids get to do because of PlayVS.
It's absolutely incredible. And for those of you not quite as familiar with League of Legends, it is a 5v5 game. As we bring up the bracket here, you can see we have the Centaurs facing off against the Red Hawks. But we are going to see 2 teams of 5 players at its basic, just fighting against each other and trying to take down each other's base. Now, obviously, there's so much more to it than that, and we'll try to explain as we go along. But that is going to be what we have on the table here today. Like we said, best of 3 format. First to 2 is going to take home the victory.
Yeah, so it's best of 3 here, 5v5 MOBA, as you said. And games aren't really timed. They can go potentially forever. Obviously, they only last usually about 30 to 45 minutes. But the game can change as it goes along too. Unlike other sports where you're kind of in the same sort of setup, the map can actually change. So instead of just having, all right, we have these lines, well, they can change a little because the turrets will fall, the base will fall. So the terrain of the map will actually change. You got to adapt to that throughout.
Yeah, and a big one that players also have to adapt to is the draft phase. So before we actually get into the game, we will have almost a little mini game, I guess you could say, where both teams will get to choose their characters they take into the game. Now, there's over 140 characters in League of Legends. Each player can only take 1 onto the map for the entirety of the game. And so both teams will get a chance to not only pick their champions, but ban some away from the enemies, some that they might think are too strong or they don't want to play against. Maybe that player is specifically really good at that particular champion. So we'll get to kind of see that back and forth. And that's also a really interesting area to watch as the series develops. Maybe in Game 1, Ashe was incredibly strong. We saw yesterday teams might want to ban her away, say, hey, we think she's too strong. We don't think we'll pick her up. We don't want the other team to do so.
And that's also a thing you got to adapt throughout the series here. Best of 3, there's going to be 2, if not 3 drafts here. And so after Game 1, if something goes wrong, hey, we're going to ban stuff out like we had last night. The Ashe, like you said, super, super strong. Had to get rid of that in Game 2 because they just couldn't deal with it. So you got to sort of be on your toes here, adapt to what's going on, figure out what are our weaknesses, what do we got to do going into Game 2, Game 3, figure that out, adapt, and use your brains a little bit. It's not all about just the reactions.
Yeah, and League of Legends is also a game that's always evolving. We recently saw a new patch come out. It's basically the developers making small tweaks and changes to the game. One big one that I wanted to talk to you about was actually going to be focused around the bot lane, and the crit cloak is going to be dropping from 25% crit chance to 20%. And that one became very popular because on champions like Misfortune and Jhin, you could kind of build those two crit items, the Essence Reaver and the IE, and then just build 2 more crit cloaks, be it 100% chance, and you had an incredibly strong mid game. Do you think dropping that down 5% is going to change the meta much?
It should. I think that those types of builds where you rush those cloaks probably won't be used anymore. Maybe on Jhin, maybe a little bit here. Some champions use it better than others, but I think for the most part, you're not going to see that too much anymore. Maybe just 1 or 2 in inventory here because stacking them isn't as good. You can't get to that 100% really unless you're wasting a bunch of gold. So I think that you'll probably see that, just kind of phased out a little bit here. But situationally, maybe, because you're sitting on a certain amount of gold and that's just the most effective item to buy, you'll see an extra 1 or 2.
Do you think those champions will still be prevalent in the meta? Misfortune is the big one that I have question marks around. She has really popped up as this great team fighting AD carry that scales well with crit, and she had a strong mid game because she could go into that IE Essence Reaver and then just build those 2 crit cloaks and be ready to go. Her ultimate skills off crit as well. In the past, we've seen a lethality build. Do you expect that to come back in the meta? Do we see Misfortune try to force that same build, or does she just drop out altogether?
I think she's still in the meta for sure. I don't see her going anywhere unless there's another big change. I think obviously this hurts her a little bit, but for the most part, you can still get to those 2 items pretty quickly because you aren't buying the crit cloaks before you complete the 2 items usually. So I think that you can get those 2 items, maybe buy 1 extra crit cloak, and then you're still in a good position because you can still build raw AD. I mean, it's still going to hurt. So especially with her passive, every time she autos someone new, she gets a bit extra damage. So I think that she's still going to be around for sure. I don't think she's going to go anywhere. I think Aphelios, I think Jin's sort of on the fringe here, but I think the rest of them are still going to stick around.
And let's talk about our newest champion set, Bruiser up in the top lane. One of the more simple releases that we've had in a while, compared to the likes of Aphelios, who had an entire essay in the tooltip. Set seems like a much more straightforward champion, but he's been very popular lately. How do you think about his release?
Well, like you said, a bit of a simpler champion. Aphelios has got so many different weapons. He changes all of his weapons around. He's something roots, something's long range. Set just punches you in the face. That's all he does, okay? You punch him in the face, he punches you harder. That's what he likes to do. I really like the direction they went with him as well. Very powerful in a lot of different situations. And like we talked about yesterday, he fares better into certain melee matchups. So if you want to get in his face, well, he's not going to like that. He's going to hit you right back. But if you sort of sit on range and kind of harass him a little bit, he can struggle with that. But then once he gets to the grouping phase, he's usually going to be pretty important because his ultimate can be very, very powerful in a team fighting scenario.
Yeah, it absolutely can. That showstopper, especially if you're able to grab a tank, bring it into the team, because it does do that max percentage health damage, or flip it around, go in on the flank, bring an AD carry to your team, have that little bit of an insec without the Lee Sin, or even double insec. That'd actually be crazy if you get Lee Sin kick into showstopper.
That's like the old Skarner Thresh combo with the lantern, where you just take about half the map back into your team, and the AD carry is like, well, I guess I should have bought QSS. I mean, I don't know what else to do.
I saw a bug earlier today. Hopefully, I think it was already patched, but Set was able to pull people right as they recalled, and it would still bring them back after they recalled. So all the way from the base, it was pretty hilarious.
That's one of those funny interactions too, because on the last couple seconds of recall, when you're going back to base, there is a little bit of an invulnerability.
0.2 seconds.
Yeah, 0.2 seconds. It actually matters sometimes, but it's sort of one of those funny interactions where you get pulled back. So it's just kind of one of those things when there's so many complicated things going on, so many different interactions. Sometimes you get those weird scenarios where all of a sudden someone gets teleported across the map just for no reason. Oh, wait a minute, he's here.
All right. Well, going to these games, there's a lot of different strategies teams can bring into this draft phase specifically. We are going to be getting into the draft really soon. We'll see what they decide to do. I'd like to get your perspective on what you think these teams should draft around, the top, the mid, or the bottom.
Well, it really depends on what they want to go for, and like I said, we got to adapt to the enemy team here. So I think that going bottom lane first is never really a bad idea. I think there's a lot of powerful champions there. Aphelios, Misfortune, we talked about them. A few other AD carries situationally. So I think that going AD carry first here is not a bad idea at all. Jungle first isn't bad either if you want to pick up an Olaf early on. I think those are the 2 big picks that I'd look at. But we'll see what each teams go for as we get, it looks like an Aphelios ban first off, so getting rid of one of those powerful champions early on.
We are going to have Manchester High School up against Woodstock Academy. Aphelios and Leona, the first 2 bans off the table, really focusing in on that bottom lane, like you said, has been so important with the rise of the elements, the dragons being reworked, the souls offering such a powerful win condition, really honing in on getting those strong champions off the board so they can secure that early pressure.
Yeah, now we got some top side bans. Well, the Mordekaiser going to come through. He's one of those champions that kind of shut down an AD carry. He uses that ultimate, and he takes you into a completely different plane. You're 1v1. That's not a great situation to be in when you got that big guy coming at you.
When we're talking around those big objectives,
that too.
the Baron, the Dragons, if you can take the jungler out of there and remove Smite, that's a guaranteed objective to secure.
Yeah, it's like Alistar was so good at keeping junglers away, but now you got, well, I just press one button, I do it as well. So just kind of a better version of keeping people away from objectives here. So a couple unique bans definitely targeting each other with a few things they like to play here. Unfortunately, we're not going to see, I believe that's the Kazakhs down there. One of my favorite champions. I think he's very cool, but can be so difficult to deal with once he gets ahead. And good to just get rid of it, especially in a game one when you don't really know what's going to happen. I think it's better to play it safe.
We are going to see the Nautilus first picked up from Manchester. They will have the first pick. Woodstock will answer back with 2 picks of their own, the Alistar and the Volibear. Volibear, not a champion we see a whole lot of. It's actually on the table for rework. His kit, a lot say, is a little bit outdated, but he is still very versatile. Has damage. He has some engageability, I guess, but definitely in those team fights with the passive as well as the ricocheting auto attacks can make him very effective.
Yeah, I just squinted that one because you don't see Volibear very often. It's a very rare pick, but he is very powerful in certain situations. Being able to interrupt dashes, well, the Kaisa just got locked, and he can interrupt her dash potentially here. That's one of the most powerful parts of his kit, interrupting dashes and stopping someone in their tracks. It's so powerful in the right scenario here. So I think the Volibear pick situationally can be very good. And interesting they drafted here, but I like it with Alistar. Actually, I think pairs pretty well, as we also get the Vladimir in there. I think that there's a lot of dive right now here for Woodstock Academy. I kind of like where their head's at. Just go at the enemy team. Don't let them come to you.
Absolutely. And you can see Manchester, they're really focusing on that bottom lane, securing the Kaisa Nautilus, one of the premier bottom lane duos, very aggressive. That ultimate from Nautilus being unavoidable and tracking no matter how far away you go, and then setting up that CC for the Kaisa is very crucial. Grabbing Nunu for themselves, a really great jungler. I actually put a lot of value on him in the current meta because we're kind of in this interesting scenario between farming and ganking. Ganking is so important, especially early on, but then securing those dragons is something almost comically easy for Nunu with the Devour and the Smite combination. Woodstock, though, finally picking up their ADC in the Lucian.
Yeah, the consume smite combo, basically you cannot smite it. There's just no champion that can do it in the game. It's basically impossible unless you get very, very lucky. So I think that's a great pick for securing objectives here. It's going to be kind of interesting if he goes bottom lane because Alistar can try and headbutt him away, but then the Alistar gets CC. It's kind of an interesting reaction there. So he can sometimes sacrifice himself to save his AD carry, but Lucian, with a little bit of mobility, maybe he just needs to save himself.
We do see the Kled as well, the Anivia picked up, so Manchester really going in on that team fight. Woodstock picking up their second Alistar.
I like this idea. You know, Alistar top isn't a bad idea. I think it lanes pretty well, especially into the Kled. I think this is a nice pick for them.
Well, I don't actually think it's an Alistar top. They did just pick up their second one.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. No, one goes bot, one goes top.
Yeah, unfortunately,
they're already in the right
order,
order, too.
Bit of a visual bug. So we'll hope to find out who's actually going to be going up into that top lane soon. But Manchester, I expect them to have the Kled in the top lane, Nunu in the jungle, obviously, Anivia mid lane, Kaisa, and the Nautilus in the bottom side of the map. I think they have a very solid team fighting composition. They have a lot of AoE, great engage with the Kled plus Nunu combo, can very easily run down into the lane, really surprise the enemy with how quickly they can engage. The other side, though, no slouch to the team fight. Vladimir, Volibear, Alistar, lots of AoE, lots of disruption available.
Yeah, and the Vladimir is a big pick here for Woodstock because the rest of their champions, late game, they're not going to be able to get on the enemy carriers. They're just going to get outscaled and just kind of shredded by the enemy carriers. They do so much damage. But the Vladimir kind of gives them a little hope in the late game that one big emo plague, and all of a sudden, the Kaisa's out of there, the Anivia's out of there, or in her egg, and there's not really much you can do then because that's where all the damage comes from, and Kled kind of falls off in the late game. So I think this Vladimir pick actually rounds the composition very well, and now we see the Fiora being picked up in the top side. I think that's actually a really interesting draft for Woodstock, and certainly late game is a little dicey, but Fiora can kind of turn the entire game on its head, and the Vladimir can do the same thing potentially if there's a group. So I think Woodstock, not as simple, but it definitely can function if they're able to play it correctly and coordinate with their team.
All right, well, the rosters are locked in. These teams are on Summoner's Rift. We're going to be joining them in here in just a moment. It is going to be the very first game here, the PlayVS 2019 Fall Championships for the CIAC.
Yeah, and I'm very excited by this Fiora pick as well. Like we saw yesterday, a Tryndamere, a split-pushing champion. It takes a little bit to get going. 2 items is what you really need. You need that Ravenous Hydra and Trinity Force. But once you get those items, there's really not someone who can 1v1 you here. Kled certainly can't do it at that stage in the game. No one else can really stop you. Nivea can maybe wave clear, but then at a certain point, the Fiora can just dive her. So I think if Fiora pick, big thorn in the side here for Manchester. Woodstock, I think, was a great decision to draft that. If they can play it properly, I think this could be a really, really amazing game here for their top laner. But obviously, it's a little dicey. Her laning phase against Kled can be good, but it's a very skillful matchup, you know, depending on how you play those dodge certain abilities. So keep your eyes on the top side for sure. I think there'll be a bit of fighting there.
Yeah, and both those champions really have similar ideal conditions for fighting as well. They both want those extended fights. Kled loves to get off multiple procs of his W with the immense amount of damage he has. Likes to extend the fights to get back on Skarl as much as he can. And Fiora wants to proc those vitals, wants to sustain throughout the fights, get her ultimate going, and also having that riposte available to take away some of the CC or even some of the damage coming through from that W. Like you said, very skill-reliant matchup. Could swing either way. We'll see what actually happens. I want to highlight the bottom lane, though, because with the Dragons having such an impact this season, bottom lane priority is going to be so important. Who do you give it over to in Game 1?
Well, in the early levels, it's a little bit tricky. Level 1 should obviously lost from Lucian Alistar. Alistar is basically a useless champion, level 1. But level 2, level 3, again, I think another skillful matchup. I think both sides have potential to win it, and even through level 6, that's true as well. So I don't give really a complete edge over to one side or the other. Lucian has a bit more damage early on, but I think both sides could win potentially if there's a 2v2 fight if played correctly from either side.
Really where I see this matchup breaking open is once the items start to come through. Kai'Sa probably going to go for that Stormraze or Rage Blade build. Lucian, though, once he gets that Blade of the Roaring King, very strong power spike will be able to start really dueling against these, this Nautilus and Kai'Sa, where that healing reduction hasn't come online yet.
Yeah, well, talking about healing reduction here, the Kled versus Fiora matchup.
Need some.
Yeah, well, Kled is actually kind of interesting because he does take away a bit of the healing from Fiora early on. But if she can riposte that, there's a little bit of counterplay there. So we'll see how this goes. It's very important to riposte that Q. That he
Kled going in, all in. Level 3
Perfect.
on either side. Great riposte, though, stops the damage. And here comes Nunu for the gank. Not having that W available to stop the CC. Goes in to knock him off. Skarl looking for the damage. Actually, a lot going down onto the Nunu. Can he trade one back? The flash away with the flash to follow.
Oh, wow.
First takedown going to go over to Chase God as he picks up that takedown on the Nunu.
And that was a brilliant play. Sure, he goes down, but he gets one back. First blood gold as well. That's huge. He's actually up gold now. That's massive, massive for the Fiora on the top side. And brilliant play. Perfect riposte on the initial engage from the Kled, and then comes back and makes a 2v1 outplay onto that Nunu. That was just a brilliant, brilliant play. Now the Fiora's in a great spot.
And it was also a great setup there by Manchester. Because the riposte was used on the Kled all in, they knew that she couldn't block the actual snowball CC. But I loved that Chase God, when he saw that gank coming in, his first reaction, instead of running away, was to go in and knock Kled off Skarl. When Kled is not on Skarl, he is significantly weaker. So realizing that, hey, I'd rather fight against 1.5 champions than 2. But right now, the hook being interrupted by the roar, the fear, and Nautilus is going to go down. Shadow going to pick up a second takedown for Woodstock.
And that's a perfect interruption. That's how you play volleyball. Interrupt the dash there from the dredge line hitting the wall on the Nautilus, and now all of a sudden, he's got no escape. He used the one big one he's got, and now he's just dead in the water. There's nothing else you can do. Brilliantly played there by the volley bear.
Absolutely. It's just a great start for Woodstock, getting advantages both in the top and the bottom side of the map. Lucian going to be crashing this big wave under turret. We'll see how much this Kai'Sa can pick up of this farm. She's doing fairly well. Only 3 CS down and has a big wave crashing.
And these teams, they both look very good here. Obviously a slight edge over to Woodstock in the beginning, but both seem to really know how each other are going to play. It seems like they're very experienced playing together and definitely have a great understanding of the fundamentals of the game here. Really impressed by the level of play so far in this one. And you can see the farm difference in the mid lane here going for the Vladimir. That's a definite concern here for Manchester. If you let that Vladimir just, go untouched, that's a real problem. But, they don't really have a way to stop it. The Anivian lane, especially before 6, what's she really going to do to Vladimir? The answer is nothing. Dragon being started up here. It looks like they'll get it because they know the back timers right now. The bot lane not there, so there's no way to contest the Dragon like we saw yesterday, even if they knew, which they don't. So, a great Dragon take, but now topside.
Shadow immediately forcing the flash out of the Kled with a flash to follow, knocking him backwards. Proccing those vitals. A couple more autos will do it, and Chase God is going to take him down. Nunu trying to equalize something in the mid lane. Vladimir's going to flash away, brought in by the wall, but the threat of the damage is going to be enough. No mana for Anivia means they can't continue on that play.
And I don't know if they'll be able to secure the blue buff for the Anivia either. The Volibear's in the topside jungle, and now topside is completely in control of the Fiora. There's no way Kled can win this matchup from here. It's just basically over on next back. I don't think there's a way he can win the 1v1. Now he's got a group look for a play once he gets that charge, level 6. That's really all he can do now. And topside, looks like they'll get blue buff. The Volibear going to go back, play a little bit safer here. Doesn't want to risk the lead they just got. So I like the play, but denying blue buff from the Anivia could have made that mid lane just complete disaster.
Definitely could. And this is a very dangerous situation now for Manchester, because when I'm looking at this top side and the 1v1 matchup between the Kled and the Fiora, normally it starts off Kled favored. He just has a lot of damage built into his kit. But then as Fiora starts to itemize, the matchup slowly swings back over to her side. She's able to out-sustain these fights if she can play it correctly. Giving her early gold only speeds up that process. She's going to quickly overtake that Kled, and there's not going to be as much of a power window.
Yeah, the window is already closed pretty much. There's a little bit left, some air's coming in, but it's not much anymore. And yeah, that's a big concern. You see already the CS starting to just grow in difference, and I don't really think there is any way to salvage this lane. And like you said, early game Kled favored. They put a lot of eggs in the basket there because they went topside with the gank, and then once that went south, it was just kind of over from there. That was their one big opportunity to get the lane in Kled's favor, and then from there he could maybe snowball that lead and get things going. But once that went wrong, it just kind of all fell apart. The game plan to play to topside is basically out the window now. I'm using more window analogies, I guess. I don't know why that's on our minds, but yeah, there's really not much he can do now. The best thing he can do is just try and stay as even as he can in CS and try and go somewhere with that ultimate. TP's up in about 3 minutes, so that's not very close, but it will be available for Dragon most likely, and ultimate should be as well. So I think that there's an opportunity to make a play on the map, and certainly if you get a lot of people in that Glacial Storm and the Kai'Sa can zoom in, I think that there's a way to win a team fight here for sure in the coming minutes here for Manchester.
And now the game's slowed down just a little bit, I want to start to talk about the mid game. And hang on, though, because we do see Volibear passing down to the bottom side. He's going to be spotted on a ward, so I expect the Kai'Sa and Nautilus to be respectful. But once this mid-game starts rolling through, when I'm looking at these compositions, he's going to get out just fine. There's a lot of sustain on the side of Woodstock.
Yeah, that was actually well played by both sides there, because what they did was the riposte was actually dodged by the Kled, but the Fiora riposted at the correct time to stop the bear trap on a rope. So both players actually did a great job there.
Going in, the Volibear doesn't have flash available, but the Culling got to come out to almost take down the Kai'Sa. So close. The auto attacks bouncing into the back line, and the Kai'Sa is going to fall. Shadow is staying alive with the help of that regeneration. That was beautiful.
Volibear laying down the law there. He says, you're not getting away from me. The lightning through the minions there. When you auto something, if there's another enemy nearby, it'll actually carry through. So that lightning will hit the Kai'Sa and allow you to deal damage to her. And now the playing's falling in the bot side. Things are looking a bit rough right now for Manchester. Great start for Woodstock in game 1.
Fiora going in with those auto attacks, proc that vital. That was very good, allowing her to push in for this. And Chase God, now 3 takedowns, only been taken down once himself, is doing fantastically up in this lane. Already over 20 CS ahead.
Yeah, and this Fiora, like I said, lane's over. There's no way to stop her. There's no one who can stop her now. In the side lane, she has free reign. The only way you can is if you bring multiple members up there, and obviously that's a big commitment. Nunu trying to do something, but I think this is well, he's just going to say goodbye. Okay, never mind.
He's
out of there.
Right past her, say, hey, I don't want any trouble. I'm just here for the minions. Please leave me alone. Chase God used that riposte, and after that was down, decided to allow the Nunu passage.
Yeah, he's just saying, hello, how's it going? Bye. Again, the Nunu there, there's really nothing. If he committed to that, he would have for sure been the one to fall. So that was actually a very good decision to just say.
The only hope was that, Fiora doesn't have ultimate. She is low on mana, so maybe you buy enough time for somebody to come help you. But being 3-1-0, there's almost no hope. Right now, though, we do see Nunu is able to pick up that Herald, continuing to just steal away these blue buffs, taking all the resources away from Manchester.
Yeah, and the good news is that there is one of the best wave clear champions in the game right now in the Anivia.
Yes.
And she's going to eventually scale up, get the mana she needs to basically just delete the waves. And if you look at the side of Woodstock, there's no siege there. They have basically 2 ranged champions. One doesn't build AD, so he's not going to really do a ton of damage turrets. He does more now with the AP changes, but they really can't siege very effectively. So if Anivia's in a lane, you can't knock down those towers. It's just not going to happen. So the only way they can really push forward is dive or try and use this to push the Fiora, which the good news for Woodstock, they have a Fiora who's really fast.
Once again, Hex Flash forward. Not going to find anything. Alistar, they're actually going to go in, though. Nunu has come. Going to be jungler v jungle. Teleport coming in from Chase God. And this forces Manchester to back right off. The Nunu having to flash away.
Yeah, that was an interesting play. I think they could have baited them in a little harder. They were playing it safe there and trying to counter that gank, but I think if they played a little bit slower, they could have baited them in and definitely won that fight there. But now we have a dragon down there. We'll see if they go over to it. Looks like people are moving over and looking to take that one.
Going to be the second dragon, and Inferno. Remember, these early dragons not as effective. So Kled just forcing Fiora to walk away there. She goes and gets that Demolish proc, I believe that was. But we'll see after this dragon what the soul is going to be, how the rift will change. Right now, full priority by
does
Woodstock,
have a flank. Here comes Nunu as well.
They're getting collapsed on. Nautilus going to be looking for a hook. Does find the Alistar into the knockup. Ruo just doing damage from the side, but Alistar is going to fall. The flank by the Nunu, but immediately gets burnt down. And is a 1-for-1 trade so far. Teleport's coming through. The Fiora cannot answer this one. And Kled has joined the fray. Blast Cone is going to put the Volley Bear on the wrong side.
No, it's the right one.
Kaisa ulting away. This is actually exactly what they need. Woodstock has turned a bad situation into an amazing fight. Kled flashing away. Fiora just wailing away in those turrets on the top side. Interrupt on the auto attack there. And Lucian now on a rampage. The Anivia running away with her life. But that was just everything coming up favored Woodstock.
And it looked like Manchester was going to take it, but they chased too far. They just went too far. They should have taken the first thing they got, backed off, taken the dragon, and just called it a win. But instead they go too far. They try and get too much. And now that big lead they had is going to be even bigger. The Fiora also got first turret gold and solo gold on that. So sure, that was a little awkward because her TP got interrupted earlier on by the Kled, and the Kled had the TP advantage there. But it worked out incredibly well for Woodstock because of a bit of an overchase for Manchester, and now this game is starting to look even more in their favor.
And I want to bring this back to a point that I made earlier. The sustain on the side of Woodstock really benefits them in these long fights. You look at that Volley Bear who got so low. The passive brought him right back up to at least half health. It's Vladimir looking to go in under the turret, gets blocked in, doesn't have the Sanguine Pool. That cannon minion, though, fortunately blocking the turret aggro, that could have been dangerous. But the longer these fights go on, the harder they get for Manchester until they can get some healing reduction.
Yeah, sustain's kind of a weird stat, like having abilities that give you back health, because usually they're pretty weak early on, but they scale pretty well into the late game, right? Where they get really, really good as we get a turret charge in the mid lane here. Looks like everyone's just going to back off. So the Rift Cone not going to get a ton. So hold on to Chase.
Chase God does not want to back off. He is going all in. That Anivia still out of mana. Goes into the egg. The ultimate going to heal him up for now. The rest of Manchester just protecting that Anivia as she does revive.
That's big to get the egg. The egg's much longer cooldown on the ultimate for Fiora. So definitely a win, although he had to use the flash. So not really worth completely. But yeah, as you said, the sustain in the game here. A lot of sustain because the Vladimir and the Fiora, and as well as the Volley Bear, even the Alistar gives healing and a little bit of lifesteal from the Lucian. So basically everyone has some. But maybe, yeah, it looks like Fiora
trying
found
to ult away. Can he actually take down Chase God? Doesn't have the ultimate or the flash. Has Shadow here to back him up, though, as Kled wants to try to trade 1v1, but it's not going to happen. A takedown spree now for Chase God, as Ruo in the bot side is going to continue the domination. There's that interaction you talked about, Alistar and Nunu. Nunu trying to find the shutdown under Ruo, but it's not in the cards today. The Alistar will protect him and take credit for his good deeds. Is now pushing to take down this turret. 12-2, a 8,000 gold lead here for Woodstock.
Yeah, that was a bit of a rough play in the bot side there. The Alistar, a really interesting matchup into the Nunu because of how they interact. And yeah, this situation, again, we have the Anivia, so things aren't over yet. And the Kai'Sa's scaling. You know, yesterday the AD carried a lot of trouble CSing. Was really struggling there and just couldn't put together the items. But the Kai'Sa's actually done a pretty good job. 100 at 15, not great, but it's not terrible either.
Especially when you're looking down the barrel of a 5-0-3 Lucian.
For sure, too. So I think the numbers aren't bad, and she's going to kind of get free farm in the bot side now if they just leave her there. So in theory, she can actually catch up here, and the Nivea should be able to stall out the game in the mid lane for a long time. And if you don't get down the inner or the outer and the top side,
the Nivea goes down, the ultimate coming through from both the Fiora and the Vladimir, that'll be more than enough damage to break that siege.
Well, yeah. See, if the Nivea falls, then she can't use her abilities to stop the wave here, so that's a problem.
Shadow going to the back line, gets knocked up, bounced around, but so tanky. He's going to survive now on a spree himself. That passive keeping him healthy as they're able to take down 2.
Yeah, and like you said, the passive keeps him alive. They don't have the money to grab Grievous Wounds yet. You have Riley, who has
way too early.
some. Yeah, he has some right now in the vest, but he doesn't. There's really not much else. So they've kind of got this sustain where they're like, all right, it's actually doing a lot of healing to us now, but we don't have Grievous Wounds to stop that yet. So Manchester's kind of sitting in an awkward space. Well, we have to buy our regular damage items before we can get the Grievous Wounds. So they're in a really awkward spot where it's like, well, we kind of just have to keep building our regular build, our regular damage, and then get the Grievous Wounds later. But in the meantime, they just can't do anything to the enemy team because they heal so much.
Here you can see some of that stalling coming through. Nivea back online. The egg now, I believe, is available again.
Not quite. A little bit longer, but she does have the barrier and the flash soon. So she's actually pretty safe for the time being, and the egg will come back momentarily. So she's actually in a good spot to continue to wave clear. But losing the outer in the mid lane does sting a little bit because you lose a lot of map control, and contesting objective is basically a dream now.
See Pledge looking for a little bit of a trade on Chase God. Turret going to assist in that one. The Herald going to break the siege. Flash forward from the Volley Bear, and all the ultimates coming through. Manchester getting demolished. Haven't lost anybody yet. That is so important. A flash away from the Alistar as he got trapped into that Nivea ultimate, and they're able to keep the siege down to just one lost turret.
And I underestimated the Rift Herald and the dive potential of this Vladimir. He actually doesn't have a shutdown on his head, but he's 006, but he does a lot of damage right now, and the ability to drop aggro is huge because it can reset the turret so it actually hits someone else, and that way you can sort of make the damage go somewhere else, and the Alistar, who's a tanky champion, can tank that. So that was played really well, and now they've got the inner and the mid lane as well. It's basically just the base left, and the Nivea can hold that for a little bit, but not too long.
The charge interrupt, flashing away to keep himself safe into the waiting arms of the Nautilus. Here comes the rest of the Manchester squad to turn it around. The shutdown credit going to the Kled. Jungler down now as the rest of the team were securing that Ocean Drake.
Yeah, that was definitely a bit of an over-aggressive play, but he did it at a really good time because the Dragon was just taken. There's no Rift Herald, no Baron. There's nothing on the map can be taken, and taking a turret may be possible, but actually pushing it out that far is kind of difficult right now for Manchester because they're so far back on the map on their own side that actually getting across the enemy turrets is like, it's quite far. You gotta put on your hiking boots if you're gonna get there. So it's actually not a bad time. Not a good play, but the best time to do that.
And I do actually want to give some credit over to Manchester because they're doing a decent job at starting to stall this game. You look at the push in the mid lane with the Rift Herald. Yes, they lost a turret, but that was it. If they had lost any members there, that could have very easily been a pre-20-minute inhibitor going down. They lost the minimum there, and then, although they lost the Dragon, able to get a shutdown onto the Volley Bear. So, although they aren't doing well, they are still 10,000 gold behind. They aren't losing as much as they could.
For sure. This is about as good a situation as you could be in considering the things that have happened prior to this in this game. So I think that they're fine right now. The biggest problem, though, at the moment is, like, sure, if the game stalls out, they'll get farm and they'll scale up. But they've completely lost their jungle. They won't be able to touch any of the camps now, and that's gold and experience that is just going to the enemy team. So it's increasing their lead while you're trying to stall out. That's definitely an issue.
And I think the scariest thing about that is Fiora is just going to walk right towards Anivia, calling that bluff, is the Dragon control, because it is going to be an Ocean Rift. And Ocean, right up there with Infernal, is considered the best Rift in the game. All of that healing on top of the Vladimir volley. Like, we talked about the amount of sustain. Add an Ocean Soul onto that, and it is disgusting. You can see the Vladimir going in onto the Kled right now, looking for the 1v1 takedown. The tower, though, doing a lot of work, and both players will walk away, just limping there, low health bars.
Now they're going to try and collapse on Fiora, but they might not be able to catch her, especially if you repost this.
Does have the riposte, but there's a lot of CC on that team. Good job going straight onto the AD carry, able to find the takedown and survive. The rest of the team has now joined, and this is disastrous for Manchester. Good Anivia ultimate there to try to buy some space. Fiora is actually going to fall here. Finally, a 1,000 goal shutdown back in the pockets of Kled, and the rest of Woodstock is fully behind enemy lines. Shadow is going to fall. The Kled will as well. A double takedown for Ruo. And they find a 4 for 2, now officially breaking the base just over 20 minutes.
Yeah, this game, now that the base has been broken, pretty much impossible to stop them from here unless something very silly is done, but I don't think...
Pulverize the Nivea actually locking the Kaisa into that unfortunate wall placement. You can see them just trying to stall out, but the aggressiveness from Woodstock is too much for them to handle.
Yeah.
Second inhibitor under siege.
That was, maybe don't put the wall when your teammate's trying to escape. That's probably the wrong way to go.
You can see teleport coming in from Chase God, rejoin the fight. They want this second inhibitor. I expect them to probably back off after this. They do have a wave coming up to the turn of bomb side. No, they just want the fight. Anivia is going to put down the ultimate, try to buy some space, but Kled is going to fall. 2-6 in 2. He's gotten some shutdowns, but not strong enough. Now with the man advantage. Actually, they have Shadow way back clearing the jungle, so it is 4v4 here.
Gotta farm, man. Gotta farm.
He's gotta farm. Make sure to pad those stats before the Nexus goes down. Are they actually looking for the end? I can't imagine they would. It is only not even 22 minutes into the game. They are going to grab 2 inhibitors. Baron now on the table. You see some pings coming out from that one. We'll see if they decide to commit to it.
Yeah, Chase God's living up to his name. He doesn't fear anyone. He's going in, man. He's chasing them for sure. There's no way he's backing off. And now, again, jungle being stolen away. Blue buff's gone. That's big for Anivia. And now Baron could even be under threat here. And with the Ocean Dragon, they can heal up pretty quick if they decide to get off this. But contest, pretty unlikely at this point.
Yeah, I don't think there's any opportunity for Manchester to even come up to check this. I mean, they have these super minions crashing to their base. They're have enough on their plate just dealing with them, make sure their Nexus turrets are protected. And you can see Chase God, even without teleport, is still running interference down here, making sure that there's enough pressure that Manchester will never have the breathing room to chase this down. But now fighting in a 1v3, will he be able to proc the ultimate? One more Q might have done it, but I imagine Chase God will go down. Luma Q picking up the shutdown for that one.
Yeah, that was, he probably could have backed off a bit earlier there, but him being there was actually important for in the moments before they took the Baron, because once he's there, a hard decision has to be made. Do we stop the guy who's right at our base, or do we try and test Baron? Both are valid choices in certain situations, but really neither's good.
I mean, when I'm looking at the state of the game, would Fiora not have been there really made it any more possible for Manchester to approach that Baron? I don't think so. And now with the split pusher in particular missing that Baron, that could also be a really big detriment to Woodstock. However, they are still 14,000 gold ahead, and I think they have a lot of mistakes allowed to them before Manchester even have a chance at coming back.
Yeah, the Fiora definitely should have backed off earlier. That's a fact, but him being there did help a little bit of taking that Baron. Should have backed off, but hey, 14,000 gold up. You can make a mistake or two and still win the game, like you said.
They have about like 10 more of those mistakes.
10 more of him
before they have to
doing
get
that.
worried.
Exactly. So now we wait for Chase God to walk into the bot lane again and get caught, and then he's going to do it again. And then we'll have a game on our hands.
Looking at the items, the Anivia finally has that Rod of Ages completed. 4 stacks out of 10 on that one. Nunu has picked up that Thornmail, but not even really components of any other Grievous Wounds on this team. And we have Baroned up super minions charging down this mid lane just 24 minutes in.
Yeah, the only other Grievous Wounds right now is the Kled Q, which can only hit one person. And there's like 4 people healing, so kind of an issue.
I actually think this is a little maybe disrespectful by Woodstock, just continuing to push in these top and mid lane. I would like to see just send Chase God to the bottom lane, bring in that minion wave, take down that third inhib.
Gotta get the cowbell though. Gotta get the cowbell.
That is the most important. You know what? I take it back.
Yeah.
Woodstock know what they're doing. Obviously, they've hit the cowbell.
I need more
here
cowbell.
Comes the charge in though. They're looking to go onto the Vladimir, but into the pool, untargetable, and the damage is raining down. Woodstock is just cutting through this team fight like a hot knife through butter. LumaQ, the only remaining member, a triple takedown for Ruo. They will dive the fountain and trade 2 back, but it doesn't matter. An ace for the side of Woodstock, and they are starting off this series with a bang.
Yeah, he only got 2 at the end, but the Vladimir finally got on the scoreboard, so happy for him, and now another dominant game 1.
2-0 and 11, that was a perfect game for him.
Yeah, he played brilliantly. kind of unsung because everyone else around him was just doing so well. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, wait, there's a Vladimir? Oh, okay. All right, sounds good.
And it was hard because he was up against that Anivia in the mid lane, and she's a very safe champion. She has the wall, she has the egg, the flash, and the barriers you pointed out. So she was the one champion that was really hard to attack. But, I mean, I've got to give so much credit to Shadow in that game. On the side of Woodstock, that Volibear play was incredible. We were questioning it in the draft. Obviously, he's very comfortable on this champion. The amount of interrupts he was able to get just shows the technical prowess he has on the jungler. And he was just all over the map early game. He was really, I think, the one reason why Woodstock won that game so convincingly.
Well, and Chase God, too, in the 2v1 on the top side, everyone was playing super, super well this game. It wasn't like, all right, bot lane already up, like, 8-0. It wasn't like that this game. It was everyone doing something, and even the the Vladimir didn't do it, get on the board early, but he was up in farm. I think like 10 or 15 early on, and then once the fight started happening, the Vladimir was there and did so much. So a brilliant game all around for sure. And Manchester, they looked good for the first couple of minutes, but it just kind of fell apart at a few moments, especially that fight around Dragon. That's where the game really blew open.
And it can be difficult when these games are so one-sided. You feel like, is it really a skill discrepancy, or was it just an unlucky early game that snowballed into the victory? That's what we're going to be looking for in Game 2. How do you think Manchester really start to fight back?
Well, they picked a lot of scaling.
Yeah.
The Kled was the only real early game champion. Nunu is even a kind of a scaler because he's a tank. So I think that maybe they need to draft a little bit more priority in the lanes. Kaisana's a fine lane, but the Anivia can work, but they need something else to stall out. Maybe a more aggressive jungler, an Olaf, Rek'Sai, something that can put a bit more pressure on the map. Because right now, in that draft, they didn't really have that. And once they kind of got behind, and then the Dragon fight happened, there was really no way to claw their way back in. And once those ganks started going wrong, not really much the jungler can do there. So I think maybe draft a little bit more towards the early game, because they definitely can get that scaling down and win the late game. That was definitely where they were going to win. They just never really got there, and that was the big issue.
All right, well, Manchester, you know what you need to do in Game 2. It's going to be coming up real soon. We're going to go into a quick 10-minute break, let these players regroup, think about what just happened in that game, and they're going to be back out on the Rift. Will this be a 2-0 sweep, or will we have a Game 3? Stay tuned to find out.
Overwhelmingly, the support has been there with, man, I wish that had been available when I was in high school. I guess it was last fall, some of the students were starting to go, hey, can we get a gaming club going? And then word came down that our athletic director was looking for someone to coach esports. And I said, this is something that's right up my alley. I've always been in tune with the geek kids, the geeks, the nerds, whatever. That's my scene. That's what I was in high school. I mean, I've done it all. I've done computer-based stuff. I played World of Warcraft for about 10 years. 360s in the house right now. The main thing that I did to help find interested students is I told all of my classes, if you have friends who are interested, please send them this way, that anybody can join. I'm not going to limit this. For our first season playing, we have come in at approximately 23 kids. I've got one full League of Legends team. I've got 3 Rocket League teams. That's where we started at, and I'm looking forward to it growing. To get started in this, it was let me learn about the games that are out there. Let me see what I need to figure out. And then I figured out that the kids are going to know more than I ever will. The opportunity for any kid to be skilled at something and be able to have the chance to pass that knowledge on. To look at somebody else and go, hey, I realize I'm not going to be here for more than a couple of years, and we want this team to keep doing well. Let's get your skill up so that you can take my spot. Absolutely, that's part of giving the kids that bit of ownership in the sport. This is the first time we've done this at our school. How much of a legacy do you want to leave? Do you want to be the guy that's helping bring the next generation here at the school along, or are you going to be the one who's like, no, I'm the best and I don't want anybody else to challenge me? When I've got my lead for League of Legends going, okay, we're invading here, I'm marking the point, everybody get here, they're learning how to really work together and develop those skills that they're going to be able to use the rest of their lives. Here's your place where you can come in and be part of a team. Esports gives that kid who is a gamer that chance to be involved in the school and maybe help them develop more school pride than what they've had. They can say, hey, I was part of this. And that they now have the opportunity to letter in it gives them a reason to go out and say, hey, maybe I do want to buy that Letterman's jacket. Maybe I do want to build some memories about high school that will last and be worthwhile. Ultimately, being a coach is opening doors for students to find their way to belong in a school that they don't have through any other means. So let's grow it. Let's make the school a more welcoming place for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. What? Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Load it.
Yeah. What? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I think a lot of students have just gotten another sense of how to belong and how to create relationships outside of what were the traditional avenues.
And a lot of my students talk about how they feel safe in the esports program, and that's their family, that's their community. And I think the esports gives kids a future that they might otherwise not have.
Man, I wish that had been available when I was in high school.
Everybody to the CIAC State Championships, Connecticut Esports. We have a great series on our hand. Game one was a bit of a stomp, granted, but we saw some signs of life.
Yeah, a bit one-sided, but it really started to turn around that dragon fight that happened early on. And once that Fiora gets rolling, pretty hard to stop her. So the scaling that they went for early on kind of didn't pay off, honestly. Woodstock just kind of kept going, and it was like, all right, well, there's not much you can do now, unfortunately. The way game just kind of snowballed out of control too early. That Fiora, just too good. And the volley bear, I didn't see that one coming, but all of a sudden, he was one of the best champions in the game.
Did. Yeah, he was definitely all over the map, but I want to give a quick shout out to Nick over at Connecticut State University for actually hosting this event. Both teams have the chance to come together and at their esports center over at the Connecticut State University really just play in a professional atmosphere. I think it's a really awesome thing that these players get to do. The CIAC is in his second year of being supported, and they already have a dedicated arena for these types of events, which is an amazing step in work with PlayVS. This entire event is just so incredible. Where even just a few years ago, like I remember, I'm not too old, like I'm like 20, but back when I was in high school, this was not even a thought. Nobody was going to do this, and now we've got set up arenas in just the second year of support. So just really thank you to PlayVS, thank you to Connecticut State University, thank you to Nick for helping make this all possible.
Well, it's a little bit of bad news because now you can't blame lag when you mess up. So a little bit unfortunate for the players, but a nice opportunity for them as well.
They've removed that scapegoat of the ping, especially in NA. It's always an issue, doesn't matter where. But looking at game two, we talked a little bit about what Manchester could do to come back into this one. I think Volleybear is probably going to be joining the ban table. Do you think that the draft was the issue, or would you just like them to shore up their gameplay?
I think the draft's a little bit of the issue. I think it's a bit, 50-50. The gameplay, obviously, overcommitment at the Dragon was really their big downfall. But the draft phase, I think, now that you know he likes Volleybear, ban the Volleybear away.
Take that one off.
Either ban the Fiora or try and pick something else and do it. I think banning the Fiora is the best thing to do. So just get rid of Fiora, Volleybear, and then you can play around the other champions that they pick. Because Vladimir still not the greatest laner. He needs to scale up, so pick something more aggressive in mid lane. I think that'd be a good thing. And also pick a more aggressive jungler. You can still get that scaling bot top if you want to or something, but those two positions I think need to be a little bit more aggressive because once they sort of fell behind, there was really nothing they could do across the map because their jungle mid was so weak in terms of roaming around the map and helping anyone. They just really couldn't do much of anything. So I think trying to get a bit more aggressive there would really help them.
And jungle mid's so important in this meta with all of that aggressiveness coming out from the top mid and the bottom lane. So we'll see if they're able to actually do that. Let's talk a little bit about the actual game itself, though, because, yeah, draft is fine, but we never would have expected that Volleybear to come through, and it was still the player that had an amazing game. He was all over the map. Shadow was just affecting every lane early on and played the Volleybear incredibly well. What do Manchester need to do in-game to prevent that from happening again?
Well, once they fix the draft, they're going to have the tools to try and contest that bot lane or the top side. Whatever one that, whatever game plan they're going to go for, they can now contest that. Because what happened last time was, all right, well, we're losing a little bit. Now we can't really contest the dragon. They tried to. It went pretty well at the start, but then they overcommitted. So I think what they need to do, fix the draft. All right, all of a sudden you got those champions. You got those tools down to contest the dragon. You can win that fight. Don't overchase. Come back to the dragon. Just take it if we, result in a similar scenario. The big thing for them, don't overchase, don't overcommit. Play a bit more controlled because what they got, they got one win. All of a sudden they went kind of crazy with it. So you need to be a bit more controlled, be a bit more disciplined. And once you do that, I think that they're going to be in a good spot.
All right. One thing I potentially would actually like to see is down in the bottom lane, we saw the Kai'Sa Nautilus, and I think in this fast-paced meta, especially with bot lane priority being so important, I don't exactly like the Kai'Sa pick, personally. Especially going with the Mirror Mana build. We talked about this in between the games. With Stormrazor getting a small nerf to both the crit chance and AD, Mirror Mana has popped up as a much more consistent option, but takes longer to come online. I saw both the Misfortune and the Jhin available. We also saw the Senna on there too. A lot of picks that can really garnish priority in that bottom lane. Do you think maybe moving towards that would help out Manchester?
Well, Leona was banned last game, so I think that'd be a great support to pair with the Misfortune. That's not available, but Misfortune Nautilus is still a great combo. So I think
100%.
Misfortune is a big answer for them in the bot lane if they want to go for that. I think she's still very strong. I think there's a lot of options for them. Aphelios was banned, so we'll see if that's banned as well. I think there's a couple question marks. You don't really know what AD carries are going to be available in the draft because you don't know what the enemy's doing, obviously. So I think that Misfortune would be a great answer, but you got to play it by ear, figure out what's going on here, because I think that maybe securing a jungler early on could be also a big priority for them. So I think that jungle AD carry 2 big positions early on they need to grab. Misfortune, great answer. We'll see if they go for it.
We also see the team swapping sides this time, so it is going to be Manchester on the red side, and that means that they won't have the first pick available. They put a lot of priority on that Nautilus. Might not even get it this time around if it is picked away, but they will have the option to grab 2 champions at once. Do they stick with their game plan of grabbing the support right away, or do they start to pivot? We are going to find out right now as we get into the draft phase. Game 2, as you can see, Woodstock and Manchester, they have swapped sides of the screen. That means that after the ban phase, it is going to be Woodstock with the first pick. Manchester is going to return.
Yeah, so it's a completely different dynamic if you're on a different side, right? First pick is so powerful, but can get punished really hard if you pick something too passive or that can get exploited. So first pick, it's a big opportunity, but also you can mess it up a little bit here. So we'll see what Woodstock go for. But Manchester, I think it's actually kind of better they're on this side of the game because now they get to react to the enemy team. They understand what they're going to do. And so if they want to get greedy and go scaling, they can maybe do that if Woodstock does the same thing.
Yeah.
But if Woodstock end up going for more aggressive stuff like they did last game, then they have the opportunity to, all right, well, we'll pick something more aggressive as well and try and match that early game pressure here. So I think that, obviously first pick very powerful, but I think that Manchester actually might benefit from this just because now they get to sort of build a team comp around the enemy team, and that'll be a bit easier for them to play out.
And you can see Manchester already attacking the composition that Woodstock piloted in Game 1. Vladimir and Alistar off the table. Woodstock is going to have to come at them with something new. We won't see them returning to that same dominant force that they had. Surprising the Volibear has not joined the ban table yet. They do have one more available. It's going to be the Fiora.
Well, it could mean that they feel that they can counter the Volibear. They might have a pick that, they say, all right, well, we can mess up Volibear with this.
Yeah.
Graves is kind of somewhere. Maybe you can play him. Now, he does get interrupted on his dash by the Volibear, but the Volibear has a tough time really getting onto the Graves. So perhaps you play a ranged jungler. Kindred is really off meta, but, 2 ranged junglers that could be played here, even the Karthus. Maybe you go with those things because the Volibear can't really punish them too hard. So that could be an option for them, but it looks like bot lane first for Manchester. I like this Xayah-Rakan duo. It's a little risky in the Nautilus if the Rakan gets caught. Well, it's not good, let's say that. But it's very powerful if you get that combo together.
I actually really like this from Woodstock picking up the Nautilus. The Graves that you mentioned is going to follow, but realizing Leona's banned away, the Alistar's banned away, Manchester put a lot of priority on that Nautilus in the first round. They grab it for themselves, and like you said, a counter into the Rakan. If he jumps in, immediate stun with the auto attack, the hook into the CC. It's very good at stopping that engage. And then pairing it with the Yasuo, that is a very powerful combo.
Yeah, the Yasuo, Last Breath, one of the best ultimates in the game if you got a great combo with it. So powerful in the right scenarios here. They're going to stick with the Anivia. Manchester is. I think that they banned away the Vladimir because they're like, all right, we want Anivia. We think she's the best option for our mid laner. But if we give him the Vladimir, he's going to get a free lane, free scaling, and that's not good news at all. So we'll just get rid of it and stick with the Anivia because we know we're good at that. So I think I like the mentality there. If they want to go for the Anivia, banning away Vladimir is nice here. The Yasuo, a bit of a risky pick though. He can get punished in lane. We all know about when we play solo queue, those Yasuos that just continue to feed a little bit too much. Couple too many opportunities where they mess up, and all of a sudden the game's kind of out of their hands. So the Yasuo a bit risky, but very, very powerful in the right
It's
situation.
actually interesting to me. Woodstock banning away 2 top laners in the Darius and Jackson. Manchester banning away the Vayne and Aphelios. This combination of bans speaks to me that perhaps we see Chase God piloting that Yasuo, because with the Woodstock banning away 2 counters to Yasuo, the auto attack avoidance from Jax, and just the Darius being so strong, there it is going to be the Kai'Sa paired to that Nautilus once again. Malphite locked in potentially the mid lane AP Malphite, and perhaps Chase God just is very comfortable on this champion. We're going to see him take it up into the top lane.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure where they'll go, depending on the last pick here. I think that it would be best to put Yasuo in the bottom, or the mid lane here, and Malphite top. I think those are the best matchups, considering the Shen is great against auto attack, so it'd be very tough for the Yasuo there. But I think Manchester drafting the Shen, the Kane's a little weak early on, can get exploited in the jungle, especially against the Graves. That's a concern for me, for Manchester, at the beginning, just looking at the draft so far. But Shen, very, very powerful, can support his teammates, can make a move, and I think what we're going to see is a huge play bottom lane at some point by Manchester, perhaps around that dragon, or first or second dragon, because they have all the tools to do it. Kane's going to take a while to get his form, but the Zyra Khan combo very powerful early on, and you're just going to be able to outnumber with the Shen ultimate.
Yeah, when we're looking at Manchester and their composition, what they do have, just like you said, a lot of tools around the level 6 to 8 time. When you can get that Shen to have his ultimate, when you can get that Kane to actually upgrade, it can be a very powerful kind of surprise if you can have Kane with those creative ganking paths, able to walk through walls. Add in a Shen on top of that, a 2v2 can very quickly turn into a 4v2 for the side of Manchester. But where I'm a little bit worried is, again, looking down their lanes, they don't exactly have a lot of winning ones. Up there in the top lane, Shen, it's going to have some pressure against the Malphite. I think early on, Shen just has a lot of damage for a frontline tank. Yasuo shouldn't really pressure, or Anivia shouldn't really pressure Yasuo that much, and the Kai'Sa and Nautilus should do okay against the Zyra Khan, so I'm worried about Manchester once again getting off the ground.
Yeah, that is definitely a concern. I think their bot lane's better suited in this environment now. I think this is a bit better for them. Obviously, it's a bit tricky. Kai'Sa is very powerful, and if you lock down the Rakan, that's a problem. But Manchester, I think that Zyra Khan is such a powerful duo still after all the nerfs they've had.
True.
They're still very, very good. So I think that lane's okay, but yeah, Anivia, that's another concern for me. I think that you're right. They do have a little bit of trouble getting off the ground, especially without that early game presence in a jungler, really. So definitely concerned. I think Woodstock have a very, very powerful draft that they put all the pieces together. Like, getting that Malphite ultimate on top, especially if they match the TPs during that big bot side play that's probably going to come in.
Look at the team fight for them too. The Yasuo can be enabled by both the Nautilus and the Malphite. You can get multiple scenarios where there's a giant last breath. Kai'Sa can dive into the backline once that happens, and then Graves with the AoE smokescreen, and then just the damage that he can output is a very great team fighter. So I really enjoy the composition Woodstock's put together. Once again, Manchester, they're really looking to play against that clock. If they can scale, if they can get Xayah to 6 items, if they can get Anivia all the way out, the Shen will eventually be just an unkillable frontline force, because a lot of the damage, if you look down the line, is physical and it's auto attack based for Woodstock. So Ninja Tabbies is going to be very valuable, and there's a lot of armor items that you can build to try to diminish the power coming through as the game goes on.
Well, we talked about the Kai'Sa builds, right? We talked about the tier build. We also talked about the Stormrazor. But what if she goes AP this game? You talked about a lot of AD damage, a lot of auto attack damage. This could be an AP Kai'Sa game. Not a very common build anymore, but it's certainly something that you could pull out here because of the mixed damage.
We'll see if that's what she decides to go for, as we're going to join these teams on Summoner's Rift for Game 2 between Woodstock Academy and Manchester High School. And it's going to start off with a 2-man stun by Anivia off the back of a 5-point invade.
Yeah, 5-man there. They still get the ward down. It's a little early, so they won't necessarily see the Kayn if he does go Raptors. But Kayn likes to go Raptors first, so this might force him to adjust his pathing early on. Looks like he's sitting at Wolves right now, so may just start on the bot side of the map here. Kayn definitely has a lot of good routes here. He's just a really good farming jungler in the early game here, but now we'll have to keep in mind that ward is there. So I like the invade. Doesn't get much, but it does get that ward down, potentially changing the Kayn and what he wants to do.
If Kayn does decide to start the Wolves here, I actually don't like that. Yes, you're going to be spotted on the ward, but the Krugs, or the top half of the map, is so chock full of experience and gold. I think by not starting with the Raptors, you're actually just delaying your early start. And with Kane, that can be very dangerous because you want to get to that transformation as soon as possible.
Yeah, the transformation is huge this game. Depending on how early that comes in, it just changes entirely how the game is going to be played by this Kane. So I think it's very, very important he gets to that as quickly as possible, but it's always a little tough to really know how quickly he's going to get to it. It depends on how the game goes, so I think it's very difficult to really know how that's going to play out here, but I think he's going to be okay in the first couple levels. The Graves already in the invade, though, so maybe I'm completely wrong here. He's going very aggressive. No lane should rotate here. Maybe the Kai'Sanals can get there, but it should be 1v1.
Yeah, and this is exactly what we would expect from the Graves. He has the advantage. The smite is going to go the way of Chase God, stealing away that blue buff. Can he get the kill as well? Not this time. A dash over the wall is going to prevent Riley from getting taken down.
That's an incredibly aggressive play from the Graves because the Kane does have a lot of escapes to get over walls. So actually finding the takedown there, not really possible for the most part. But he does get the blue buff, so that's huge. But the reason I think it's so aggressive and a little bit risky is because the Zyricon are actually physically closer to that spot here. So while the Graves does know he's invading and his bot lane can shade over, it's so early on that if you leave lane, that's a lot of XP you're losing. So it's just a very risky play. And if that didn't play out the way it did, that could have been actually very bad for his bot lane and for Chase Scott himself as the Graves.
Well, very good job there by Chase Scott to... He took that risk, but he was rewarded. Stealing away that blue buff is going to really hurt Riley's early clear. Up on the top side, the Shen is just continuing to wail away on this Malphite. That Rock getting chipped at just constantly. You can see 8 CS to 12 already.
Missed the cannon though, so not worth as we get another invade.
He is just bullying and out of his own jungle. There is no camp that he is safe to take.
Well, I mean, this is just an amazing play by the jungler here. He's punished the Kane so hard. He may be going a little bit too far though.
He's going to flash forward. He knows that Kane does not have the flash available, pushing him right into the waiting arms of the Yasuo. But Kane is so slippery, flashed forward there. And first takedown going to belong to Woodstock once again. They're continuing to dive under the tier 2 turret. This is just unbridled aggression here from the Woodstock squad.
And well, you know this team knows each other really well. They trust each other. You don't make a play like that if you don't know your teammates are going to follow up. And that's a brilliant rotation there from Shadow and Giant Juice. As we get, oh, well, okay, never mind. Nothing happening in the bot lane.
Grand entrance into a grander exit there for lastly. But yeah, tell me more about that play.
It's just, you don't make that play in the jungle. You don't make those too aggressive plays if you don't trust your teammates. And that's just a sign of a team that trusts one another. They know what they're going to do, clearly have a plan, clearly are well organized. Just very impressed by Woodstock so far with what they've done. And now the Kane, he's at 8 CS. He's taken 2 camps, and we're at about 4.5 minutes. That's not good.
And remember, Kane gains progress towards this transformation by dealing damage to champions. He's not dealing damage when he's constantly running away.
Yeah, I think he's maybe got like 1 Q off on them. That's probably it here. As also mid lane in trouble. This is when the Yasuo starts to take over the matchup because the Navy doesn't have the ultimate yet to clear the wave. And if the wave gets pushed onto the side of the lane for Yasuo, he can just kind of dash down it, and the Nivea is going to have a real tough time running away here. So she really needs to get level 6, but she's struggling to even get XP right now. 14 to 27 in CS. Mid lane going kind of rough here.
See the top lane, Shadow is trying to fight back. Actually, interesting tidbit that we didn't mention, we saw Chase God and Shadow swap roles.
Oh, that's true.
I completely did not see that happen.
Well, he looks so good, I didn't think he was not a jungler. Wow, that was brilliant play by him.
So this is actually really incredible, and it just further speaks to the trust that this team has and the adaptability that they can just swap their players around. We have a G2 on our hands.
Yeah, and sometimes it's also dependent on the champion. So other MOBAs, there will be basically champions people play as opposed to roles, which, you know, champions are mostly set in their roles, but there is a little bit of flexibility there. But actually, you know, because Graves is such a different champion than a lot of junglers who are melee, more focused about, you know, getting in the enemy team and being aggressive there, Graves is a ranged champion. He plays much differently than most junglers. It actually makes sense to have someone who plays, you know, those champions and maybe has expertise in the Graves to come in and, you know, take over that champion when you draft it here. So the flexibility is huge too. That's a huge boon. If you can have the ability for someone to swap a role when you want someone on a specific champion, that's just like a huge benefit here. And jungling's really a team game, right? You can't do it alone. Obviously, people have individual talent and individual knowledge about the jungle and how that works, but it really is a team effort to track the enemy jungler, understand what's going on, and work together for those brilliant invades where you shut down the enemy jungler.
Yeah, and Daddy Longleg is going to be looking for a engage there. Hook goes wide, so nothing's going to happen on that play. But we saw in game 1, Shadow, when he was on that volley bear, heavy on the ganking. He was always in the lane. Seems like the farm was just an afterthought. This time, when Chase God is in the jungle, he's much more aggressive on counter jungling. So it's really just the two play styles where I see that this team is swapping them out depending on what they need. Hey, should we just gank our lanes, or hey, should we try to attack the enemy jungler? That is where I really think this team has an advantage of being able to swap up that play style. But right now, 7 minutes into the game, a 1,500 gold lead here for Woodstock. Almost 2,000.
Definitely a concern, but oh, hold on.
Great hook there to sneaking it past the minion wave onto Lumaque. He is going to find the feather, pull back, and get a stun. Zyrakan, very slippery. It's going to be an even trade.
Yeah, like last game, you do have that sort of backup of the Anivia. She's struggling a bit right now, but she can be very good at wave clearing. Zai also good wave clear AD carry here, and right now, I think that you can sell it for a while. The big moment, I think, is going to come if they make a Rift Herald play, because that can start knocking down the turrets and start pushing the pace of the game forward more than you would expect if you get a good Rift Herald play off. So while the Dragon is taken right now, I think the real thing to look at is the 30 seconds on top side.
Great ultimate there by the Yasuo. Was able to find that knock-up, and Nivea so close to falling. Remember, she still does have the egg, so Yasuo being respectful, not even committing the ignite, knowing that it wouldn't actually take the Anivia down.
Yeah, but he almost got the egg. I think he was trying to use that ultimate just to get the egg, and then on the next cooldown he would go for it. That's why he was trying to save the ignite for the potential next play. Doesn't quite get it. Now the Anivia is basically pushed out of lane. There's no way she can stay here. She just has no health left, so unfortunately she's going to have to give it a bit of priority there and probably some platings. As the Kane's going to get some farm here. That'll be nice for him to cover that, but definitely a bit of an unfortunate situation now in the mid lane as she's 63 to 27 CS. That's a huge lead for the Yasuo.
But I haven't seen Riley pull off a single gank at all up to this point. You really have to be active as Kane in the mid lane or in the early game because you want to stack up that progression towards your transformation. He's going to have a very late transform as this game goes on. Going towards the skirmishing saber, not quite sure if he's looking to build toward a Kane or toward a Rost or a blue Kane. We'll see what that is going to be, but I don't know. This is just another great start for Woodstock, but still not as bad for Manchester as game 1. I think that's the caveat we have to touch on, is they have lots of scaling, and yes, they are behind, but they are not as far behind as they were.
Yeah, that's the good news, but that could change soon. Like I said, the Rift Herald play could be huge. The next Dragon play could be huge if they try to contest, if something goes wrong here. So we are waiting potentially for a big change in the game. But you're right, things aren't as bad. The reason he hasn't been able to get off ganks, though, as the Kane here, right? Like he just can't. He can't do it. Yeah. He had to like farm up so much to try and get back into this one because, like we said, first 4.5 minutes, he only got 2 camps. Like if you're only getting 2 camps, there's just nothing you can do because you're only like level 2. You don't want a jungler ganking at level 2. He's gonna
Chase God could
beat
be caught in the wrong spot though. Great Anivia stun over the wall. The wall to keep him locked in. A good Malphite ultimate though. It's gonna turn the tide. There's so much damage as Chase God's now chasing on the Anivia. The egg is going to be proc, not under the turret. Shen gonna try to buy some time, but with the knockup, that's all she wrote. A quick 3 takedowns there. 2, I apologize, for Woodstock.
And that's really unfortunate. They lose the ultimate as well. The Stand United, such a powerful ability. He still has the TP, but losing that cooldown, really, really unfortunate at the back end of that play as well, trying to save his teammate. It's a nice sentiment, but there I think you need to just let her go. Okay, if you love something, let it go. I think you need to let go of Anivia there. There's no way you can save her, even if she does revive.
Flash away from Bruo to try to avoid that knockup, but there is the counter to the Rakan. He goes in, he gets locked down. The Rakan is actually be able to stay alive. Quickness is going to put up some more CC, but he put himself right in the crosshairs of the Kaisa. Flash forward from Lumaque to grab that takedown. The Nautilus will be next, but a great knockup there gives a window for Juice to jump in and find the ultimate. Now here comes the Kane, looking to try to turn this one around. Can he get in? A dodge on the W is going to keep the Yasuo safe as he flashes the obligatory level 7 mastery emote.
Yeah, the Yasuo, brilliant play. The dredge line counts as a knockup, so you can get the last press off it, and that just got him in time to find it.
Ooh, great stun there by Chase, got on the wall to block the Q. It's actually a pretty cool counter to the Graves. Didn't even think of that.
Yeah, the wall has a lot of interesting, unique interactions with a lot of different champions here.
Oh, here comes the Yasuo trying to now turn onto the Kayn. One more knockup will do it. He doesn't have the ultimate available, so decides to just back off. Is good with that little bit of poke. With the flash forward onto the Kayn now to avoid the grand entrance, but with Xayah returning to lane, it is going to be a shutdown into the pocket of last.
Well, that's the Yasuo we all know and love. Should have backed off.
Our team's Yasuo.
That's our team's Yasuo. Oh, wow, from downtown.
Shea Scott is able to find that takedown on the back of it. Lastly, making a grand exit there. Red buff burning down. One more auto attack, but it's blocked by the Xayah.
No.
Stunned under the turret, and it's going to be a 1-for-1 trade so far as the Nautilus is able to find the connection.
Yeah, these are the plays when you get a little bit too aggressive, like yesterday, a little bit too confident, get a little too aggressive, and all of a sudden you throw away your lead. They're still very far ahead, but that play definitely helped Manchester there. That was not necessary from Woodstock. Good, though, they still got a couple kills. I mean, not terrible, but I think Manchester are happy that the Yasuo went in there.
But Manchester, they're fighting back, and more importantly, all the takedowns that they're getting are going onto Lumacu, onto this Xayah. She has finished her Essence Reaver. She's in a strong point, and come these mid-game team fights, Xayah has a lot of power.
Certainly does. She's very good. Once she gets that second item here, if she can get an Infinity Edge early, I think that'd be really amazing for her side, and she'd be a real threat going forward.
Comes lastly looking for the knockup. You're going to look at top lane, though. The wet noodle fight going on, and that Nautilus almost went down, had to flash away over the wall to keep himself safe.
Yeah, that was kind of unfortunate. The Nautilus was just flashed, especially
hang
around
on
the dragon.
here. The Yasuo might be looking for an engage. I believe he dashed to the Xayah first, so wasn't able to actually follow up as she went over the wall.
The flash on the Nautilus definitely a very valuable flash for support. Rakan too, but the Nautilus flash, being able to get in there and guarantee a knockup on someone, or at least force a defensive play out of them, is huge, especially if there's going to be a fight around Dragon at some point in the future. But it looks like neither side has that in their minds just yet.
Fancy feat by Yasuo, but he does eventually dodge that. The Dragon is going to be the next target for Woodstock. Is actually going to be stolen away by Riley there. As he great use of the ultimate to dodge a lot of those abilities, he will be trapped in it eventually fall, but able to steal away that Ocean Drake.
That's huge, though. That's a really big steal. Great job by him winning the Smite fight, especially when he's, I believe, 2 levels down.
Yeah,
so that's
Smite
very
does
impressive.
less damage.
Yeah, it's just straight up, you don't do as much, so impressive he was able to get that one.
Very good job by him. Might have bought his team a little bit of time. Remember, this team is playing against the clock. Time is their best friend. If you can get a Nivea stacked up, get the Xayah stacked up, get those resistances on their team, this could be a very scary late game composition. We do see Kai'Sa, as you mentioned earlier, going for more of that AP build, trying to diversify their damage profile. But it's still a lot of auto attack based damage coming through.
Certainly is. That's definitely a concern for later on. The Shen, all he has to do is stack armor, and the rest of the team not really able to stack too much armor. That's some bad news for Manchester. They're not really like a tanky lineup, which is going to do that. Rakan can get some, but not a ton. So it would be better if like the Nautilus on the other side, then he could stack armor and become incredibly tanky as well. So a bit unfortunate they have a Rakan who's a bit squishier as a support go.
Nautilus looked like he was searching for that hook, but backing off Lumacu. And lastly, they see the Yasuo coming in on a ward, and so they are just going to walk away. Shadow, though, going to use this moment in the top side to take down that first turret solo. Not what you expect from a Malphite.
Certainly not here, as the Nivea may be in trouble. She's got egg, but
yeah, great wall. Going to force Giant Juice to path a little bit weird there. Good stun going to land as well into the ultimate. Herald going to be popped on the mid lane, but in the bottom side, it's the quickness grabbing to the Xayah, looking for the takedown onto the Kai'Sa, who ults into the back line. It's going to be enough damage. Heal coming out for Summoner's Burn. And here comes the Malphite ultimate, the knock up into the takedown. Shadow going to grab credit for that one as Model of Time flashes away to safety.
that was a really nice flash in there by Shadow, and a big kickoff now because they can probably continue this push here. The bot lane's not back yet. They can maybe get this inhibitor turret. I don't think the inhibitor necessarily, because the bot lane will be back by then most likely, but I think they can get the turret.
And this was a very even game up to just a minute or two ago, but it's been broken wide open by Woodstock, looking to break the base. Doesn't look like they'll be able to get it. A good defense there by the Shen. And that's actually very important. If that turret had gone down pre-20 minutes, it would have been disastrous for Manchester.
Yeah, pre-20 minutes. It's 16. That's a long time before
That's
20.
very pre-20.
That's very pre-20. That would have been a huge pickup for sure. Put a lot of pressure on the enemy team. As it stands right now, there's still a lot of pressure on the map here for Woodstock. But saving that turret, very important, as you said here. There's a couple of neutral objectives coming up in a couple minutes, but we'll have a little bit of a lull until then. So
yeah, let's talk quick about those neutral objectives because we have the Cloud Rift coming onto the map. And a lot of people, and very rightly so, consider the Cloud Rift one of the weakest because all you're really getting, for the Rift itself is just some movement speed after you ult. But what's going to be very important, I think, is the stacking Cloud Drakes. 10% CDR on each one. If you look down the list of Woodstock's composition specifically, they have a lot of really high impact ultimates. The Yasuo, the Malphite, the Nautilus, the Kaisa. Cooldown reduction is worth its weight in gold and then some for them.
yeah, certainly both sides have great ultimates, but Woodstock, I think, benefits even more so than Manchester does if they pick it up. So it's really good news that they're currently ahead.
They almost might be thanking Manchester for taking away that Ocean Drake.
Yeah, certainly. Just getting to that is important. So I think that, yeah, this is actually a really good position you find yourself in. Oh, interesting item being built here. We actually have kind of a split pushing item from the Graves.
Oh, there's the ultimate from the Malphite, snuck into the bottom lane. Ruo is going to be the first to fall, and the ultimate from Ruo actually looking to pick up another takedown. Flash forward from Yasuo, though. He's not going to let the ADC walk away with both of them. He wants some credit to his name.
Okay, we're not going to have a lull before the objective spawn. We're just going to keep fighting. It seems like a good plan to me.
Yeah, Woodstock doing a very good job at forcing this tempo. We finally see a transformation from Riley. Welcome to Summoner's Rift. Rost, as Giant Juice going a little bit too far, just barely slinks away with blinking health bars as a Great Hook is going to grab the Kane back into the fight. Looking to turn around, but a double takedown from Shadow is just going to continue to push the pace of this game.
Yeah, and now with the inner turret falling, you have 2 lanes of pressure where you can potentially open the base up.
Absolutely. They're looking to pressure on this bottom lane tier 3. But they do have the Cloud Drake to fall back to. These are very important for their team. You see that Yasuo reset. The rest of the squad is going to look to pick up that objective. We do see Lumacu and lastly coming to try to contest. Will they be able to find the Yasuo? No! Finishes the recall just in time.
Would have been a big pickup. Unfortunately, they don't get him on the back there. Dragon should go over here. Doesn't look like there's going to be another steal from the Kane. I think he's a little far away for that one. But it will take a while to get to the soul here. So there is a bit of a gap between when that'll come up. And Baron's not really takeable at 20 minutes, I think, if you're doing a good job of warding your top side. So Manchester can certainly stall out the game for another couple minutes, most likely,